The president yesterday, when he went to start selling all the great lies he's telling about his economy, went up within, hours of this tragedy and acknowledged it in a almost perfunctory way, and then began an onslaught, a partisan onslaught, against his best friends in Washington, the Republicans. The Republican leadership in Washington wants to just, as far as I can tell, lay down and go along with whatever he wants. They're not providing much opposition. I mean, there's some of them are, but the vast majority aren't. And yet he felt the need to once again assault them and attack them in a purely partisan basis, even when it was the president who said after Gabby Giffords got shot that we got to stop this. We got to stop the kind of behavior he engaged in yesterday. So the drive-bys had their sensibilities upset for him. They knew it wasn't cool, and so they begun to construct excuses. Well, he's under so much pressure. You know, the Syria thing, and he's got the Putin column, and he's got the poison nerve gas in Syria, and who knows where it's going to go. He's got Benghazi. He's got all this going on, and these Republicans are just so mean and nasty that he really didn't have a choice. He had to go out, and he had to go out and attack him, but it really wasn't cool. It wasn't classy. And so the drive-bys even were unnerved by what was clearly, people call it tone deaf. It wasn't tone deaf, yes. It's exactly who the guy is. Obama, this is exactly who he is. His number one objective, modus operandi, is to eliminate all opposition. Anybody who opposes him is number one enemy. It doesn't matter. In fact, domestic enemies are his, domestic opponents are his number one enemies. So everything that happens is going to get plugged into that narrative. Whatever happens, it's going to be an opportunity to trash the Republicans or trash the conservatives. And he did it yesterday. It's who he is. And the drive-by is understandably upset about it. And they sought to defend. Let's go to the audio soundbites. We have a little montage here. This is an illustration of how they themselves recognize the impropriety of Obama's behavior yesterday. The tone deafness, they say it is. But that's not what it was. He's just not. He's not who people think he is. And there's things like that yesterday portray who he really is. And it's a question of you want to have the courage and the guts to admit it or pretend that it was just a faux pas. And, of course, the drive-bys very worried that it was a screw-up yesterday, and so they immediately began the CYA, and we have a little montage to illustrate.
Did they ever consider not giving the speech as a result of this?
I was very surprised that they let this pre-planned event go on in light of what was happening.
Very jarring. The moment the president was speaking, we, of course, were getting reports from D.C. police.
The president expressed empathy before going ahead with his speech containing deep partisan attacks.
At no time did they consider canceling today's events.
I really wonder now if they are having some second thoughts. The tone was a little off for a day like today.
The timing of the speech was inappropriate.
You can imagine if a similar thing had happened under George W. Bush, that a lot of people would be outraged.
That's John Heilemann there on the MSNBC, and he's exactly right. I think it was half of the duo that wrote that book, Game Change, that HBO turned into a hit piece on Sarah Palin. That's who he is. But he's exactly right. Any Republican president who would have done what Obama did yesterday, well, how many people were killed and how many people were shot, how many people wounded? It was a major, and they canceled a baseball game. The Senate, Harry Reid, sent the Senate home. And there's Obama up there attacking the Republicans for it. And you have the D.C. mayor blaming it on the sequester. And so the drive-bys, no, we got to somehow explain this and cover for Obama. Because they see everything through the prism of, oh gosh, is it going to help Obama? Is it going to hurt Obama? Jay Carney, the White House spokeskid, yesterday afternoon, a press briefing, Ed Henry of Fox said, why did the president go ahead with what became a series of attacks on Republicans about the health care law? By the way, there are 4 or 5, maybe 10 now, Republicans who are actually trying to stop the implementation. The vast majority of Republicans, so-called Republican establishment, Obama's buddies on this for all intents and purposes. So it's even worse when you realize he's thinking about 3 or 4 people. He's thinking Ted Cruz and Mike Lee and some of the others. So Carney's asked about it by Ed Henry. Why'd the president do that? All these attacks on Republicans about the health care law, the debt ceiling and all. I mean, he didn't seem a little bit off. The middle of this manhunt, people being informed about lives lost, for the president to move forward with an attack on the Republicans. What was that about, Jay?
Time is short. We need to address these challenges. It is also true that we have an unfolding situation here in Washington with regards to violent action and shootings, and it's entirely appropriate for the president to address that at the top of his remarks.
Of course it is. The Republicans are so mean. The Republicans are so evil. The Republicans are so terrible that even in the midst of such a disaster like this, we cannot lose sight of the focus of a real important matter in Washington, and that's what a bunch of creeps the Republicans are. Last night on the Kudlow Report on CNBC, he spoke with